introductory speech today on a young lady named Elizabeth C. Newcom. She fought alongside many men in the Mexican-American War disguised as a man. And I think that she is one of our most influential women in the military to date because of when she fought this battle and how she got away with it for as long as she did. Without, it says a lot about the fight we're having now with women fighting in combat and the comments we get about how we're not able to do it. It's ridiculous. She kind of stands as a shining star to me as an ability to say she was able to hide out as a man and fight right next to men. Nobody even knew the difference until she was injured and had to go see a doctor. So I'm going to talk about her for a little bit. When I decided to pick her as a topic, I thought I would be able to find all kinds of information on her. I mean, she seems like a big deal to me, and I thought this should be a great, easy topic, lots of info. No. Maybe 3 or 4 websites, and they all had the same one small blurb of information. Kind of found a little sad, considering that the feat that she pulled off and what she did for our country. Any man in her position probably would have had articles and articles, and there was just one paragraph that I was able to find. But I think it was still enough to do a good speech on her. We don't know a lot about her service, but we do know that there were lots of other women like her who did the same thing she did, not only in the Mexican-American War, but in the Revolutionary War and in the Civil War. Dressed up as men, some of them, as soon as their husbands were down on the battlefield, picked up the rifle and continued to use the field. Again, only bits and pieces of information come out about these women, but there are stories of several women like her. I chose her simply because not only did she get on the battlefield, fight as a man, but she was able to fight and be compensated for her service after they forced her to leave the service as a Christian. And I thought that that was also pretty influential and pretty important. One quote that I found while doing research I thought was really important to my topic, and it says, "Most Americans know very little about women's history because documentation only covers men's role in combat." So while these women had huge feats during these great wars, the only things that were documented were about men, and it's probably because the people doing these documents were men, and they're not going to acknowledge that there was women fighting the battlefield, especially during that time. This comment was made by Janice W. Heretic, who wrote the article History of Women in the Military that I used to do my research. During America's early history, several women fought on the battlefield alongside our founding fathers, and Miss Newcom was one. She enlisted in 1847 at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. She dressed up as a man and went under the name Bill Newcom. She served for 10 months fighting Native Americans out of Dodge City, and once they found out she was a woman, they forced her out of the service. So she was injured, and she had to see a doctor, and it was obvious then that she was a woman. They forced her out of the service. But what she did when they forced her out was she fought very hard just to get the basic pay of a military serviceman. And she also was given a grant of land, which, if you know anything about the time period back then, only men were able to own land. So a woman owning land gave her quite status, which was a pretty big feat back then. But the thing I find sad is that of all her accomplishments on the battlefield, the only thing that's really celebrated about her is the fact that she was able to get what was entitled to her anyway, because she served her country, her pay, and her land. And it may seem ridiculous to us, but her ability to get this stuff was a huge feat back then for women who were expected to be seen and not heard, who were expected to run the home and bear the children. Not only did she pick up a gun and fight, but she fought for her rights, and she was given land, and she was given pay, compensation that, most women would never have even been brave enough to even fight for. So she was a huge pioneer to me in the civil rights movement, even before there was a civil rights movement. According to the Defense Equal Opportunity Management Institute, which is another website I use to do my research, women have served in our nation's armed forces since the day we established ourselves, but we were not given permanent status in the military until 1948, which is astonishing since we've been at war, basically since we've been in our country. So to me, this makes her a pioneer in more than one way. First, she's settling up land in a new country, basically, fighting in brand new territory to America, and then she's also fighting for women's rights before there was even such a thing as women's rights movement. She loved her country, she wanted to protect it just like anybody else did, so she did what she felt she needed to do. She disguised herself, picked up the weapons, and she went and defended America against an enemy that... and because she was women, just to get her entitlements, she must have had to fight really hard to get Congress to say, yes, we're going to pay you, yes, we're going to give you land. Another quote that I liked, that I read while I was doing my research was, it was never the case that women did not want to serve their country, but they had to overcome numerous barriers in order to be allowed to. This is also by Janice W. Heritage, who wrote History of Women in the Military. And it's still, I think, today, a pretty current comment, because even now we're still having to fight to have just equal positions in the military as some of our male counterparts. We have to fight to get the recognition that some of our male counterparts are given. As if, you know, they're given the choice to go to battle and fight. Some of them, you know, we don't have the same choice, the opportunity to fight that they do. So to me, Miss Newcom is one of women that I look to as a huge influence, a huge pioneer in the women's civil rights movement. And she is the reason I decided to talk about this topic, other than the fact that, you know, with the new passing of women being able to fight in combat and the comments I've heard at work every day, I thought that this was a valid topic to talk about. And she's also why I consider her one of the top 10 most influential women in history, in military history. And that's one of the